Founded in 1867 as part of the rural cemetery movement, historic St. Agnes Cemetery is located in Menands, New York, just outside of Albany. It is among the most beautiful Catholic cemeteries in the country. There are well over 100,000 burials in this sacred ground. At least 14,000 of the burials recorded are reinterments from the earliest burial grounds located in Albany. On the grounds there are many beautifully carved marble gravestones dating from the early 1800s. They are works of art, and their inscriptions serve as important documents for genealogists. St. Agnes Cemetery's landscape was carefully planned and engineered to take advantage of its 114 acres of rolling hills offering views of the Hudson River Valley and Catskill Mountains far off in the distance. Roads are narrow and winding, some more suitable for horse-drawn carriages than the modern automobile. Magnificent trees shade the roads and cast shadows on monuments from a bygone era. Each gravesite marks the remains of a person that has a story, one that we can interpret based on the footprints they left in life. Each story is related to events in history that impacted and shaped the lives of those who are now long dead. I'm Kelly Gramaldi, historian for Albany Diocesan Cemeteries and creator of Graveside Chats. The film you are about to view tells the story of the past and some of the people in it. I hope you will enjoy this lesson in history, and remember, visitors are always welcome to explore the beautiful grounds of historic St. Agnes Cemetery.
I know this hill. What a view. But what am I doing here?
Hello, Peter Kager.
Hello.
Nice spot you've got here.
Thank you.
You really did a wonderful thing here.
Yes.
It's ironic, though, isn't it?
Sorry? What is?
Peter, do you know why you're here?
I do not. 1 minute, I'm in New York in a carriage going through Central Park on my way downtown to the convention. The next thing I know, I'm here in the new cemetery on the hill where just a month ago I booked my plot.
Peter...
I have no idea how I got here. But isn't it wonderful? The board and the workers did such an amazing job of turning this rocky, hilly piece of land into a beautiful cemetery.
Peter, it was your vision. You gave the land to the church. You led the board to make this a reality. The first Catholic rural cemetery in Albany County. And you got to pick the first plot. Isn't it a beauty?
Yes. But who are you?
Peter.
Yes?
Peter, the carriage crashed.
I don't understand.
You banged your head on the pavement.
I don't remember.
Peter, it's time. You will be the first in your own St. Agnes cemetery.
But what do you mean? I've died? I can't die yet. I just founded this place. I got my lot, but I have no desire to occupy it yet. I'm only 53 years old. No, forget it. There's too much left to do. My wife is expecting me home tomorrow.
I'm sorry, Peter.
No!
It's not what you have left to do that matters. Look at what you've done. You founded this cemetery. It will endure into the future. It will grow. And the money you're leaving your family, with that, they'll start a Catholic hospital that will become one of the biggest healthcare facilities in the area. It will be named after your namesake saint. You will never be forgotten. Rest well, Peter. You've done well. You deserve it.
Oh, such sloppy reporting.
What, dear?
Sloppy, irresponsible, execrably bad reporting. How do they call themselves journalists?
Well, dear, not everyone has the type of commitment you had to telling the whole story, engaging your readers.
Or any of the story. Get it right. Forgive me, my dear.
No need to apologize, John. I know how upset you are. You've been saying the same thing for months, ever since you sold your share in the newspaper.
Maybe that was a mistake.
No, John, you needed a break. You were working 24 hours a day during the war. You almost got killed covering the draft riots in Troy. I was terrified for you.
Never in any real danger, my dear. It was all on the other side of the river.
Never in any danger. The Troy Times offices were destroyed, completely burnt out. What if that had been your paper? What would myself and our 7 beautiful children have done without you?
You, my dear, would do just fine. You always have. You raised our children almost entirely by yourself and taking care of our home.
Oh, I had help.
Yes, but not nearly enough, especially from me. My whole life was wrapped up, and thanks to you and the children, I was able to do it. The Civil War. Just the unspeakable horror of what went on. Brother against brother. But I had to be a part of it. Working the telegraph, those long, horrific hours after the battle was over. Many families wouldn't know for weeks that their boys were gone if it hadn't been for that.
It was noble the way you sacrificed yourself. But now you're home all the time. You must be losing your mind. And you are quite in my way. My dear, you know that I do love you, but we have both always had our own lives. You did the Lord's work with your newspaper and reporting. I do the Lord's work in my own way with my charity work and community activities. I love what I do.
But Mary, how can I leave you alone like I did the other...
John, I'm hardly ever alone. Certainly the house is quieter now that the children are all gone. But we do have servants. And as I said, I have my activities. In fact, I was just in the middle of planning a charity event when you interrupted by throwing your newspaper at me. John, please understand, I'm telling you this for your own good. Mostly.
If, and I said if, I decided to go back into business, I wouldn't even know how to begin. There are too many newspapers. You've got the Argus, the Times Courier.
Weren't you telling me just the other day about 3 struggling papers that could use someone of talent and business acumen to rescue them? What were their names?
I know the names. It's the Times Evening, the Union Times, and the Daily Sun.
Right. Well, perhaps, just perhaps, you're what they need. You certainly know how to run a newspaper. Maybe you could buy all 3. We can certainly afford it. And you could merge them. You could call it the Union Sun or the Times Daily or something.
Daily Sun, Times Daily. What do you think about calling it the Times Union?
That's a perfect name, dear.
The Times Union. I like it. It's punchy. And there's an old building on the corners of Beaver and Green Streets that would be a perfect newspaper office. But Mary, I don't want to leave you alone.
Oh, John, stop dithering. You're a restless nudge and you are quite getting on my nerves. Please, for me, get out of my way and go back to work.
For you, my dear, I would do anything.
It's a summer day in 1905, and Bridget Coleman, Albany's oldest living resident, pays a visit to her parish priest, Father John J. Dillon of St. Mary's Church.
Mrs. Coleman, come in. Come in, please. Won't you sit down?
Oh, saints be praised, Father. It must be near a mile to walk here from my home on Spruce Street.
You should have had your daughter accompany you.
Oh, Lord love you, Father. Eliza's not getting any younger, you know. A little unsteady on her pins these days, but she's been a great blessing to me all these long years since my dear husband John died. God rest his soul.
Can I get you something? Would you like a cup of tea?
Tea? I just walked a mile on a hot day. I'll have a pint if you don't mind, and if you do mind, I'll have a whiskey with ice in it.
I'm sorry, all I have is tea.
Might as well be a Methodist.
It's always nice to see you, Mrs. Coleman. My altar boys are always glad when you come. They tell me, Grandma Coleman always brings pies and cakes for us.
Oh.
You are known for your biscuits with raisins.
Oh, they're good boys, to be sure, Father. Although I wager you'll be watching the communion wine around some of them.
And how's your family?
They're all fine, Father.
Is there something on your mind then?
Oh, that there is, Father. You see, I've buried 8 children and my dear husband John, and now it's time to be thinking of my own funeral.
Well, you're not ill, are you?
Oh, no, Father, no, but nobody lives forever. Do you know I am 105 years old? Now, there's a cemetery plot for me in St. Agnes, right next to my dear John, that my dear departed daughter Margaret got for me, God rest her soul, when she was married to that Lane fella. Now, I want to be buried there, but I want my funeral mass at St. Mary's, and I want you to conduct it, Father.
Of course you'll have your funeral here.
And I want you to be in charge. I don't want any assistant pastor like what happened to poor Katie Collins, God rest her soul. I figure My family and I have been parishioners here since we came here many years ago. Why, I remember when you first came as a wee lad, and then when you took over as assistant pastor to Father Woolworth when he lost his sight, God rest his soul.
Certainly I'll say your mass.
Oh, I figure it's all that I'm due. Oh, didn't my John help with the building of the cathedral, and didn't he help with building this very church here?
You have my word. Now, what about your family? Will they be there?
Oh, Eliza, certainly, and me son John, and me daughter what married Hannavin, and me daughter what married McCarthy, and John's got a son Leo. Oh, he's he's a fireman at the state normal school, and the only one to carry on the family name. And then there's young Tom McCarthy and the 6 Hannavin children, and Father, they tell me I have 25 great-grandchildren, but I can't keep account of them.
Is there anything else I should know?
Let me see. I was born Bridget Seary in April 1800 in County Westmeath. Are you from the old sod, Father?
No, I was born in West Virginia, and I grew up in Syracuse.
Oh, that would explain things.
I don't know if you're aware of it, but you are the oldest living resident of Albany.
Oh, that I do know, Father, and a terrible burden it is, and all in all. Oh, so many dear loved ones gone before us. God rest all their souls.
Tell me, though, how do you stay so healthy?
Well, I never touch a stimulant, Father, and I take my medicine every day. Oh, and if it wouldn't be a bother to you, I'll have some before I leave, if you have a glass and some sugar. You do have sugar, don't you, Father?
We have sugar.
Oh, I'll give you my advice on how to live a long time. Do you eat meat, Father?
Yes, of course.
Well, I eat very little meat. I can't with my teeth and all, but I have 3 good meals a day, mostly soup and milk. And I go to bed at 9 o'clock every night, and I rise at 5, and I walk all the time and never sit except to read. And, you know what else will give you a long life, Father?
What's that?
Raise 12 children.
Well, I bet you got a lot of stories to tell about raising your family all those years.
Oh, yes, there have been good times, but there have been bad times too, I won't lie to you, Father. Why, shortly after we came over here in '54 was the terrible cholera epidemic, and right about that time those know-nothings were campaigning in Albany, all against the foreigners. Well, we knew they were talking about us being Irish and Catholic and all. Why, there was an Irishman who made a speech against him right here in this very church. Oh, and then there was the time that President Lincoln's funeral procession came to the old Capitol. May God rest his soul. Oh, I walked the 4 blocks to see it. It was a glorious day, but terrible sad, terrible sad. Oh, then my husband John tried to get work building the new Capitol, but they told him he was too old. And look at me. Here I am, nearly twice the age he was when he passed. Imagine that.
A fine, full life you've had at that.
Oh.
Now, rest assured, we'll give you a send-off you can be proud
Oh,
of.
that's all I ask, Father. That's all I ask. Now I must be going. I don't have time to spend frittering the day away as some folks might.
Here, I'll walk up the hill with you.
Oh, thank you, Father, but before I leave, might I have that glass and sugar?
Mama, it's so good to see you again. I really missed you.
I missed you too, dear. But I knew I'd see you again here.
I'm glad. It was a little scary when I first got here, But people greeted me very nicely and made me feel safe. Not like that awful place from before.
The building collapse, you mean?
That was terrible. I was working in the cash gallery. The day had just started. All of a sudden there was a roaring, and screams of girls and men and women. And then I was falling. But then I ended up here. It's so beautiful.
My darling, I wish I could have been there for you.
But you were. I knew you were thinking about me. You always think about me. All of us. Every one of your babies. All the time.
I do all the time. Wait until you meet your new little sister when she gets here. It'll be a while, though. She was only just born.
Mama, you had another child? So that means I have... how many siblings?
8. And they miss you very much. Life just wasn't the same after you left.
I also hope things weren't the same at that building.
You know, they plan to rebuild it.
I hope they make it safer for the people inside.
A lot of things got safer after that day. Buildings, working conditions.
Did childbirth get safer for mommies?
Much safer. New facilities are being built so that women don't suffer as much.
I'm glad.
People are starting to realize there need to be protections in place. Strong protections, both for people working in buildings and for mothers. That building you were in, there were workmen digging in the basement, and they didn't reinforce a pillar that held up the floor well enough. That's why the collapse happened. That's what caused it.
So the men digging the basement caused it?
Well, they just didn't know their work would affect the building that way. They tried to fix it before the collapse happened. They tried to keep it from falling, but they couldn't. But now, what they call codes or rules for how buildings are built and maintained are being developed. They'll help keep people safe.
Good. I don't want another little boy to go through what I went through just for going to work.
Well, it's another great thing that's starting to happen. Laws are being created to protect children who go to work. In time, it will be against the law for a boy as young as you were to even go to work.
But sometimes I liked work, and I was a good worker.
Of course you were, Francis. But young boys like you need to go to school and have time to play. You were a very good worker, and the money you gave your father helped us and your siblings out a great deal.
It sure did. And now when they rebuild Myers department store, it'll be safer, even if we had to come here to make it happen. I'm glad. Plus now I get you all to myself.
We've all heard at one point or another that it is not nice to speak ill of the dead, but sometimes it can't be helped. Such is the case with Captain John Arts, a veteran of the Civil War who lost his leg in a battle. His reputation prior to and up until his honorable discharge was sterling. It is after the Civil War that we find John Arts running amok of the law and becoming the subject of public scorn. We do know war changes people, sometimes profoundly. It is 1873, and 2 young women are enjoying the day until one of them sees John.
Mrs. Mosley fell over backwards in a drunken state and landed squarely on my prize rose bush, flattening it to the ground. It has been days, and that woman has yet to send a note of regret. She'll never be invited to my garden party again. I hope she is still picking thorns out of her enormous... Franny, look! That poor man fell in the street!
Emily, that's John Arts. He's a cad. I know his sister Catherine, and she is a lovely lady. But do you know what he did? Why, he stole thousands of dollars from Rensselaer County while serving as a superintendent for the poor. For the poor, he made himself very wealthy. It was all over the newspaper. And do you know, he was never found guilty? I'll never understand that. Politics as usual, I suppose. But it was poetic justice when Governor Hoffman impeached him, causing him great public embarrassment, and he deserved it. Everyone knows he's a thief, except for you, apparently.
I know who John Arts is, Franny, and I know his actions while working for the county were worthy of a prison sentence. The poor man just looks so pathetic and helpless flopping around in the street like that. He did serve the Union well.
Oh, sure, he hangs his hat on that. He was a captain, and yes, he did lose his leg in a gun battle. But does that justify every rotten thing he did after the war? I think not. He's a sneaky little man. Do you know, despite all of his wealth, he can't find a wife. And I think it has a lot more to do with his dishonorable character than his lack of attractiveness. Why, he still lives with his mother.
Well, I still feel a little sorry for him. Did you ever consider it was the war that changed him? He was a young man when his leg, and I dare not speculate what else, was nearly blown off. Have a little compassion for him, Franny. You don't know what he saw in those terrible years, and you don't know the pain he feels all these years later.
My dear, sweet young friend, you're such a sap. Always feeling sorry for the wrong people. Perhaps John Arts is bitter, but many men were maimed in the Civil War, many much worse than him. I'm sorry, but I don't have any compassion for him. I just don't. You feel sorry for Mrs. Mosley, who is likely still pulling thorns out of her enormous...
That is entirely different.
Is it?
It is indeed. That rosebush is, well, it was the prettiest in my garden, and...
Please, Simon, don't take our son. Don't take my baby. He's only 12 years old. He's so innocent. Don't take him from me.
Mary, you know how important this cause is. Yes, our boy Barney is small, but he is our eldest. He is strong and very brave. And he won't even see any fighting, as he will be a drummer boy. Our Union troops will make short work of those rebels. We'll be home in no time. And with 8 mouths to feed, Mary, we need the money.
I love you, my soldier boy. Hurry home.
I'm sorry I won't get to serve with you, son. But you are a Ross, and you'll do me proud.
The closest a modern American boy will come to the war experience is video games or paintball or movies. But for the young boys in the Civil War era, war was not some abstract thought carefully orchestrated on the big screen or at play. It was real, and it dominated their very existence for 4 years, having a profound effect on their life. Life perched precariously on the brink of death. Cannons, bayonets, disease, all became inescapable realities. You were supposed to be 18 years old to enlist, but this young man, Barney here, is representative of approximately 20% of Civil War soldiers who were under the age of 18. This 12-year-old boy enlisted on July 19th, 1861, and his story must be told.
I'm here to enlist, sir, to fight for the Union cause.
Yeah, are you old enough? Looking pretty scrawny to me. Are you even tall enough to hold a rifle or a bayonet?
I'm 4'10", sir, almost 5 foot, and my dad says I'm really strong. And I can drum, you know. Keep the soldiers marching to a steady beat. Please, sir, I need the money to feed my brothers and sisters.
What's your name, son?
Bernard Ross. Most folks call me Barney.
Well, Barney Ross, you shall be charged with the task of keeping time on your drum to the marching of the heavy boots of your fellow Union soldiers. Welcome to the 3rd Infantry, New York State Volunteer Army, Barney Ross. In the 2 years before he was eligible for discharge in May of 1863, Barney saw the loss of 122 men in his company alone. Rather than return home when he had the opportunity, his dedication was so great that he enlisted for a 3-year term. He saw much carnage in Morris Island, South Carolina, Fort Sumter, Charleston, before marching into the hell of Cold Harbor, and then trench warfare at Petersburg. It was in the siege of Petersburg on July 3rd, 1864, that Barney's drum was silenced by disease, and he was confined to his hospital bed with a high fever that almost cost his life. It is presumed that the boy Barney who left for war was not the same young man Barney who returned. After blood-soaked uniforms, gaping mortal wounds, and the agonizing screams of wounded and dying filled his days and nights. The truth is, not much is known about this brave young man who lost his childhood along with so many others. He returned home in late 1864. The 1880 census showed him living unmarried, still with his aging parents in his early 30s, and he died just 6 years after that census in 1886. His father, Simon, spent 3 months in a militia protecting Washington, D.C. Simon is buried here too, along with about 500 Civil War soldiers at here St. Agnes Cemetery, the closest that we can tell. Barney's headstone was a marble headstone that had fallen over and broken and was barely legible. It has been replaced with a beautiful reproduction marble stone. We will never know the physical and mental impact that the war had on Barney and others like him, but his innocence must have faded just as when the sounds of the cannon and the agonizing screams of the dying smothered it out.
Dealt this hand.
Hear that sound? Hear that train? That's a bittersweet sound. I nearly get killed under fire in Cuba, spend the entire war in that godforsaken place, and then I'm just trying to enjoy working with the trains at the railroad. I slip and fall and get killed by a switch engine.
Died a hero, though. Honored by all those Spanish-American war vets.
That's right. Frank Fournier, only Albany man to win the Medal of Honor, Congressional Medal of Honor for that war. What was that for, Frank?
Oh, I rescued some wounded soldiers while under fire. But hell, we got a few Medal of Honor heroes here.
That's right. Patrick White, Civil War Medal of Honor recipient and gunnery hero.
Well, when I received that honorary sword, which is now housed in the New York State Museum here in Albany, I told them I do not deserve these honors. I serve my country to my feeblest ability because I love it.
Hear, hear.
Hear, hear. But let us not forget about you, Thomas Matamore, a great philanthropist and one of the founding fathers of the cemetery. And your boy Frank paid his ultimate sacrifice to the Union cause.
Thank you, Patrick. My son Frank, he was a brave surgeon. But the conditions in that war, well, no, surely any war, but the unsanitary medical conditions, I mean, they were as lethal than any enemy combatant. He made many amputations. Died at the age of 23 from infections.
And Parker Dunn here also cut down in his prime, being a hero in that war to end all wars.
Yeah.
Well, like Patrick, I wanted to do something for my country, but they didn't make it easy. Rejected me 3 times because of my eyesight.
Patrick had to lug heavy cannons through the mud. Parker had to dodge machine gun fire. The armaments change, but the horror remains the same.
You deserved that Medal of Honor, though, for volunteering for that suicide mission. Glad you ended up here at home.
Yeah, well, they took me out of the American military cemetery in France and brought me here to St. Agnes. They had a service at Immaculate Conception. I was an altar boy there. That was nice.
Now, we all served our country in our own time. Now, whose deal is it?
How exactly did you serve our country, John?
I was captain on William Walker's Nicaragua filibuster expedition.
Overthrowing peaceful sovereign nations, raising armies to enslave people?
Now, William Walker was a visionary.
More like a destructive, egotistical pirate.
Pirate? We were fulfilling our nation's manifest destiny, expanding our superior traditions and institutions, empowering more primitive nations.
Parker's right. You were invading private army, out for a profit. In other words, pirates.
Listen, the filibuster of 1856 was not against the laws of this country according to the concept of manifest destiny. Most Americans at the time believed in manifest destiny. They believed that the God-given right of American settlers as they settled the continent was to culture the inferior peoples. William Walker's mission was part of that purpose. Look at the measure of this man, Colonel John McCardle. 1, he was one of the original trustees of this cemetery. 2, he's a very famous and very popular Albany restaurant owner and tavern owner. And then lastly, he was one of the big benefactors for the Catholic Church and St. Vincent's Orphanage for Children. He has the largest lot in this cemetery. A third of it is because a third of it is for the nuns, the Sisters of Charity that ran the orphanage, and a third of it's for the orphans. There are a lot of different kinds of heroes. And we're all playing cards at this table. So whose deal is it?
People emigrated to the United States for freedom and for the dream of a better life. Once here, however, reality set in. There were language barriers, no work, disease. Many children were made homeless when parents became ill, died, or simply abandoned them. Often children were left to beg in the streets. By 1850, there were 27 orphanages in New York State. Many were funded by private concerns and run by churches. One such orphanage was St. Vincent's Orphan Asylum in Albany, funded by Colonel John McCardle, a local tavern owner and benefactor of St. Agnes Cemetery. The orphanage was run by the Sisters of Charity. Much was done to provide care and social activities for the orphans. On one fateful day, however, in September 1903, 3 souls were claimed.
Girls, please pay attention. I know you're excited about the picnic, but there's something I have to do first.
Oh, please, Mama Layton. We have waited so long for you to finally take us on an outing.
Can't you see this is important to her? After all Mama Layton has done for us, taking us in where we had nowhere to go.
I'm sorry.
It's all right, dear. It's just that it's been years and I need to pay my respects to 3 beautiful souls that rest here.
Who are they?
My friends. Mary Breen, Grace Burns, and Mary O'Brien. I haven't been able to speak of their loss, but not a day goes by that I do not think of them.
How do you know them? Do tell us about them.
We all met at St. Vincent's when I was just 5 years old. Grace and Mary Breen and I were about the same age, and we quickly bonded. My older sister and Mary O'Brien were the same age, and our younger sister loved to tag along with our group when we would let her.
You've never spoke of the orphanage very much. Why did you go there?
You see, girls, there were many, many children at that time without a mother or a father. Some parents died of disease. Many lived in poverty and could not provide for their family. Many left in search of work never to return. And the children were left behind and found themselves at the orphanages. My father became very ill, crippled and blind from rheumatoid arthritis, and could not work. My mother struggled, but became so distraught that she could not provide for our family. She died in an insane asylum. There were many, many stories like mine at St. Vincent's. The nuns cared for us as best they could. We were fed and clothed, and Mr. McCardle would stop by and give us treats. Life was still hard, but we took comfort in each other and friendships blossomed. We were more than friends. We were a family.
How long did you stay at St. Vincent's?
Well, when the girls turned 16, we were sent to St. Joseph's Industrial School to learn a trade, one that would make us marriageable. Mostly domestic services and seamstresses.
That's how you can make us such wonderful clothes.
What happened to your friends?
It was a beautiful day, much like this one. We left the city in such joyous spirits, as the good sisters had arranged for us to picnic and swim at Fernwood Pond right here at the cemetery. Such a wonderful place. The four of us made a makeshift raft, and we tried to use it at the shallow end of the pond, but there were too many people and the raft kept going aground. So we decided, when no one was looking, to launch our raft at the end of the pond that was blocked off, as no one was there. We sailed to the middle of the pond, not realizing how deep it was. We were all standing on the raft. Suddenly, the weight shifted, and the raft flipped. None of us could swim, and our clothing was made of heavy fabric and stocking and weighed us down. I remember going under. I tried to grab a part of the raft and surfaced briefly, but I went under again.
But you lived.
I prayed. I prayed for all of us, and it was as if the hand of an angel responded. I saw a shadow and took the hold of a hand that was reaching down into the water. Next thing I knew, I was on the shore, and the man who had saved me, a groundskeeper, was standing over me with the sisters trying to help. I was told later that they could not find the others until later. My friends had drowned. I was told that many people tried to help, but they could not swim. Susie Crabtree tried and nearly drowned from the weight of her garments and her corset that made it difficult to breathe. And I lived. I don't know why I lived.
I do. You live to teach us about how far we've come as women. We can be educated now. We can work. We can vote.
You lived so that when our mama died, you could love and care for us. We're your family now.
You lived to tell their story.
Hi, Grandma and Grandpa. It's me, Kelly. I think about you a lot in the summer. So many memories up on Lake George. I was even able to get up there. Grandpa, you'd be so happy. The boat looks beautiful. It's been beautiful weather as well. Was that thunder? I guess I spoke too soon. Graham, do you remember when I was about 5 years old? I was so terrified of the thunder. And you told me that it was only the angels in heaven bowling. It seems silly now, but it gave me a lot of comfort then, and I wasn't afraid anymore. I miss you both so much. I love you.
Hey, Maury, you ever wonder why you still spray your shoes with Lysol? It's not like a few germs up here are gonna kill you.
Oh, you always gotta have some kind of commentary, don't you, Andy? Just can't retire. So who are we up against today? Because I'm telling you, Striker Mike is on fire.
I just hope I can keep it up. We're up against the Granite Men, and they've won every match since... Hey, look, there's the captain now. Probably here to gloat.
Good afternoon, gentlemen. Let me introduce myself.
We know who you are. Anthony Brady, one of the richest men in America. Who else dies in 1913 with a net worth of $100 million? Oh, that would be you. The golden boy of Wall Street. The Sun King. The Gas King. What other names did you have? Or were you just a god?
And you are?
Morley Shaver.
I'm Mike Wellis.
And I'm Randy Rooney.
Well, it's very nice to meet you, chaps. But it's going to be more fun to beat you.
We'll see about that. Just because every business venture you entered into hit pay dirt. Let's see. Oh, there was that little idea about using electricity to replace gas lamps. You made a tidy sum off the New York Edison Company. And quietly controlling those granite quarries. No money lost there with those public works contracts for pavements and sewer lines. Oh, and then there was converting the horse-drawn railroads into trolley lines to compete with the steam railroads. Your greatest coup being the Providence, Rhode Island Street Railroad. That cemented your reign as an organizer on Wall Street. Your corporate holdings were unprecedented for their time. The list goes on. I suppose some people think a mere mortal couldn't accomplish all this. Well, you've met your match with us Minutemen. We're gonna shave a little gold off the Midas Man and his team of rockheads.
We're the Granite Men, not the Rockheads. And there's no reason for you to get testy. Look at where we are. We shouldn't give St. Peter's any more things to trouble him today. Why can't people think of me some other way than my business accomplishments? Think of me as a family man, a devoted husband and father. Think of me as a man who gave and gave to worthy causes, including the Brady Maternity Hospital that was built with my funding. I had seen too many women and children die in childbirth. I wanted them to have good medical care, even if they couldn't pay for it. It didn't happen until 2 years after I died, but it did happen. I am so glad we built that hospital. My family helped support it through the late 1960s when it closed. And I was rich, very rich. But I was mortal as any of you. I had to live through the terrible accident of my daughter Flora. She burned to death in a train wreck, along with my daughter-in-law, my son James's wife, and her two sisters, the Hamilton girls. All of them died in this horrible accident. I couldn't bear it. I died only a year later, and I think it was because of my broken heart. I had all of the money that anyone could ever want, but I would have given it all away if history would have just erased that train wreck.
Well, we're all equals here, except for our bowling skills. Anthony, game on! I hope your rockheads can stand up to us Minutemen.
Granite Men! We're the Granite Men!
Anthony Brady began his life in the old French city of Lille on the 22nd of August, 1843. His parents had refugeed from Ireland to the more congenial soil of France, as many another good Irishman had done before. Not long after that, the Bradys left France to settle in Troy, New York. Brady was a go-getter right from the start. He learned in public school, and he learned well. And when he was 14, he came to Albany in search of work. Travelers who stayed at the Delavan House, the best-known hotel at the time, and the shrewd politicians who gathered there began to notice the silent, active young man who was cashier at the barber shop and in charge of the hotel bar. He saved his earnings and opened up a tea shop, which became the biggest thing of its time. He branched out and soon had several of these China tea stores, and Anthony Brady was on his way to successes too many to note. He was truly a self-made man of many great accomplishments, taking advantage of the plethora of innovations of the late 19th and early 20th centuries. He sought to improve infrastructures, transportation, and healthcare, and the list goes on and on. He was a man of tremendous compassion and quiet temperament, and he was generous to the end of his life. Rest in peace, Mr. Brady.
My name is Michael Nolan, and I am running for the office of mayor. I hear your voices, and I get the message loud and clear. You want labor reform, and you want them now. Your daily strikes outside your places of work are boiling over with anger and growing resentment at the men who pay your wages. Blacksmiths, machinists, painters, molders, carpenters. You want fair wages, and the Democratic Party hears them.
Union!
Fair wages!
Union!
Fair wages!
Union!
Fair wages! I hear you, and the Democratic Party hears you. You have fallen on hard times. Times have gotten so tough that the call for bread and work can be heard on every street corner. You feel overworked, and you feel that your work is underpriced. I agree, and I will stand by you when you negotiate with your union leaders and your factory owners. I will stand by you as you demand fair wages, safer working conditions, and an 8-hour workday. I hear you, and the Democratic Party hears you.
No more promises, no more lies! No more promises, no more lies!
I know. You want a decent wage. You want to be able to climb out of poverty and get a decent life. But let me tell you, I know about being poor. No, I know about being poor. Would you trust an Irishman now? I was born in Ireland to a modest family. We immigrated to this great country of opportunity, and I went to public school and learned about the social climate of this city. I know you feel overworked. I know you feel beat down. We don't always make the wisest choices. I haven't. When I was young, I heard the call to the west in search of gold. I panned from dusk till dawn. I spent my last penny and I got nothing. And let me tell you, I know how scary it is to have nothing. I ended up working for a streetcar company in California, and I started at the bottom, but with my wits and the grace of God, I moved to the rank of general manager and worked to save money to come back home here to Albany. I know you're scared. I know you're beat down, but I will be your voice. I will be here for you and for your people. You take your booze back to the Republican candidate who they're well deserved. If I am your mayor, I will give you every opportunity. This great city is a place where a poor man can become rich. But remember, a rich man is only as rich as his character. We should not hold our citizens in place of a life of poverty while the rich man uses and steals your labor. They put aside hard-working, able-bodied workers for prisoners, prisoner labor contracts. I will end those prisoner labor contracts. I am an immigrant and an Irishman like many of you, and I am a Catholic like many of you, and I will stand by you. I will be your mayor. I will give you the voice that you want, and I will help you bring your family back to prosperity in Albany!
Irishman for mayor! Irishman for mayor!
Michael Nolan became the city of Albany's first Irish Catholic mayor when he took the oath of office in 1878. The ambitious Nolan, a young Turk as they say, was able to rise above the entrenched elite Dutch Protestant society and assume a position of authority and respect. While serving as mayor, Nolan also served in the U.S. House of Representatives from 1881 to 1883. He seemed to have no lack of energy, for he was also the president of the Beverwick Brewery, which he ran with the well-respected Quinn family, and he was founder of the very exclusive Fort Orange Club, still operating in the heart of Albany. He became a very wealthy man, owning a beautiful mansion in Saratoga Springs, where his name was well connected with the horse racing industry. It is said that Michael Nolan was a gentleman possessed with odd quirks, one of which caused his demise at the age of 72 on a particularly warm day. It was May of 1905, and Mr. Nolan insisted on wearing heavy woolen clothing while seated in a heated horse-drawn carriage as he rode through the streets of Albany. He became overheated, suffered greatly, and succumbed to organ failure on May 31st. He rests here in this extravagant tomb that is the last tangible evidence of his very successful life. We now come upon this most majestic angel, beautiful in form and important in its tribute to a small child. People did not usually commission such works for their deceased children. Usually a name etched in a family marker was enough. But as we now hear from the sculptor himself, Carl Conrads, this case was very different.
When I was first approached by the family for this piece, I could scarcely believe it. My works usually adorn the final resting place of statesmen and the battlefields where so many have perished. My works usually are very large. They honor the fallen who have been lost at war. I never thought that I would be contacted to make a statue to mark the loss of a little girl. I'm apprehensive about meeting the family, the grieving family, but we are meeting today to finalize plans. I hope that what I have to offer them will be satisfactory, for I will devote my full strength to this sad project. May I offer my prayer to your dear girl, so young? I am so honored that you think of me as someone who could do justice to her in what you have planned.
Sir, please know that money is no object. This child was so important to us, and you are the only one that we feel can help assuage our grief. I only ask that you give as much dedication to this family plot as you have in your other various works. The many magnificent soldiers' monuments you've done, and the other sculptures, which only reflect your respect for those who fell during the Civil War. We know you yourself served with great honor, and we put our faith and trust in you, sir, for this, our much beloved child.
Please, sir. Our child was a small, delicate girl. Her untimely death has broken us beyond belief. My husband, a physician, was unable to cure the illness which ravaged her tiny body. He suffers every day from being unable to prevent her death. We could not keep her with us in life, but I beg you, sir, Allow us to keep her with us in death. She was our precious angel.
I propose that we use a figure of Archangel Gabriel. As your most precious angel, your daughter Gabrielle will be the first member of your family to lay here. I believe that marks a special blessing for the girl. But as the Bible declares, Gabriel was the angel that appeared as a man, and he shall be portrayed in that way. When completed, he shall be looking heavenward for the signal from the Lord.
It will give us such comfort, sir, to know that our littlest family member will be treated with such respect.
When it's our turn to be laid to rest in this cemetery, there will be some comfort knowing our sweet Gabrielle will have her family surrounding her in death, as we did in life. Bless you, sir.
We bear witness to a young couple burying yet another infant child. Childbirth itself was hard, but the early moments of childcare, so critical to life, were often seen as an inconvenience to slave owners whose lives depended so much on the labor of others. The mistress of the house could not afford to have her slaves neglecting their duties, even slaves who had just given birth.
I can't put my baby girl in the ground. Not another one. My sweet child. My baby. She will be so cold there, Ezra. She is but 4 days old and so tiny. I tell the missus, I beg her, please. Have a doctor. She is too weak. She grasps for every breath. She gonna die. Please help us. Mrs. uses her fancy words. She tell me ain't no doctor gonna come here and see a Negro child. She tell me that if it be God's will that the child die, thy will be done. We lost 3 babies since we've been at this house, and all the missus say is, Clara, if you had more control over yourself, you wouldn't always be in that way. She give me no time to suckle my baby. No time to heal my body. All she care about making me do is hard work all day, sun up, sun down. How she call herself a Christian woman.
The Lord loves all his children, no matter what she might think. Baby girl was just born too soon. She's so small. She
give me no time to save her. No time to heal my body, just like the rest of them. I sat back in the house, working. All the whilst our sweet child lay gasping with only old Violet to tend her. The missus ain't no Christian woman. She the spawn of the devil.
Clara.
Hateful, cruel, she know.
Clara, you've got to keep a whisper in your mouth. Listen, you're gonna make it worse for all of us. And God stands in judgment over everyone.
I stand in judgment of her.
Stop your dawdling and get back in the house. Washing isn't gonna do itself.
Look, you stay here. I'll go and talk with the missus and see if she can give us a few minutes to bury our child.
Your baby girl is already in the arms of Jesus. I've seen her there. Her sweet soul will bloom for all eternity in the garden of heaven. You must let her body go into the earth. She is fine now. Someday, white people and people of color will be seen as equal in the eyes of the law, just as they have always been seen in the eyes of the Lord. There will come a time when the sins of slavery will tear this nation apart, and the healing will take many years. You must have faith, and it will happen. Your people will one day be slaves no more.
The missus say she give us... Where'd you get that flower, Clara?
It was an angel, Ezra. An angel came to me. She said our baby girl is in the arms of Jesus, and to have hope that one day our people will be slaves no more. She told me our baby girl will bloom forever in the garden of heaven. We will name her Hope.